Hey everyone, welcome to the pre-show. This is Scotty Roberts, your host. So we're not officially on air for another 4 minutes, so we're going to do our best to just get set up here and fill in some time. And we're just about ready here to get this rolling for the show. Here we go. Boom. All right. Oh, yeah, we got the echo. Bang, bang, bang. I've been trying to find a way to download a couple of old EVPs that I have lost on my computer over the last 12, 13 years. And I've got them over on a stream that you should be able to hear. Here, if I copy this link, I'm going to put it in the chat room right now. You can go over and listen to these. We got someone telling us to fuck you and a couple of times. And then what to me, I believe, was an old prostitute. By old, I mean over 100 years old. We were in a old antique shop in Winona, Minnesota that had used to be a brothel and bars 100 years earlier, Rivertown. And here's that link. If you want to go look them up, I think you can play them from there. If you look at that link, because I can't seem to download them, and there's no way to really play them on air without doing that. I wonder if I had the link, if I'm able to bring it in as a sound, but I don't think so. So, because it's a video. But I'm going to see if by any chance I'm able to bring this in. Tell me, those of you, since we got 2 minutes before we go live, I'm going to see if I can grab this. And if I can, if you're able to hear it. No. Yeah, see, I'd have to grab it as a video. I'm limited for as much money as I pay for StreamYard. It's limiting. It doesn't let me grab videos and play them. We experienced some of that last night in the captain's cabin. So that's too bad. Because I was, I'll tell the story during the show. And I wish I could play that for you. I could play it, and you might be able to pick it up on the microphone, but that's a wonky way to do it. You won't be able to hear the subtlety of it. So let's get my comments showing. Boom, boom. We're almost ready to go on air. We got less than a minute, and we go live. So look at that candle. Look how that's illuminating things back there. I've got the candle for the whole ambiance of the show tonight. Since it's ghosts, we're going to talk about ghosts and stuff. Some of it you've heard before. Some of it is stories. So, all right, guys, we're going to go dark for about 10 seconds, and then we'll come in live. Stand by.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, happy Friday. Welcome to the program. I'm Scotty Roberts, your host as always, here on the Intrepid radio program. And because it's a radio program, it does play on a radio station that broadcasts around the nation. You can go over to Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. You can hear the audio version of this show. Now, you can also join the simulcast in video, which is found in two different places. You can go to Facebook, over to the Odyssey Radio page. That's facebook.com/Odyssey Radio. And you can come on over to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And while you're there, you can like the video, give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And you can, if you look down below, right over here somewhere, there's the little join button. You can click on join and you can find 3 ways that you can join this channel and throw a little financial support into it. So I thank you in advance for what you're doing, and so do the other members of this channel. And I want to say welcome to everybody over in the chat room over on the YouTube channel. I see all the Intrepids gathering over there, and a couple of faces I don't see quite as often. That doesn't mean you're not here. Just means you don't always come into the chat room. Hey, Romeldian and Steve Clark and Barbie D and Debbie Treadway, good to see you. And Master Finn, good to see you. Well, once again, I've asked the kids to close the door to my studio, and they've left it open. So you may hear random children running around screaming, as well as dogs barking upstairs. And that's just the way it is until we build the Intrepid radio building, which isn't happening anytime soon. So Rainey is gone for the weekend with the youngest, with Ellery. They're doing scout camp together for the weekend. So it's just me and Flynn and Rowan. And we're gonna have a good time this weekend. We're gonna go see Jurassic Park tomorrow at the theater, at the big movie house. Now, I don't care what you think about renting movies and watching them on TV, because you can get all the big movies now. They put them out when they put them out in the theater. They seem to put them out online too, and you can spend like $30 to watch it at home. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to spend $30, I want. And while we've got a 70-inch TV, I want a big screen. I love the movies. I love going to the big movies, big picture, big sound, sitting in the dark. I love the new movie theaters with the reclining chairs so you can eat your popcorn in recline while you're watching your movie. And I'll state one more time, just because we've talked about this before and made it a big issue, I can't stand it when I go to the movie theater and I pay $8 per person to see the movie, and people, as soon as the last scene is and the credits start rolling, people are standing up. It's like, sit down. The movie's not over yet. Let us watch the credits. Listen to the music, to pay respect to the people who made the movie. I hate that. If you're going to go to the movie theater, sit till the credits are over. You know what? Your car is still going to be there. It's going to take just as long to get out of the parking lot. So just sit and be a little patient. Is life that busy? You got to get home while the credits are playing. That's my pet peeve of the day. So, whoa, hot Steve. So I don't know what I missed there. Grumpy Stack, good to see you as well over in the chat room. And by the way, everybody, if you're just listening in audio, you can keep that audio up, and you can come on over to the YouTube and click on the video play, and you'll be able to watch the show. Not that there's a lot to see other than me sitting here talking, but sometimes I show pictures, and so you might be able to enjoy some of that. Tonight is we're going to try to do more and more of the stuff that I like to do. I get trapped and lost in some of these series that I do. I love this series on the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, but I also have so many other things that I'd like to talk about that I throw in during the regular radio show, which is really only about 52 minutes long. And then we do a bunch of other stuff in the captain's cabin. That's the afterglow. If you're not used to it, if you haven't been here for very long, when the show ends on the radio, we just pick up and keep going on the YouTube and with the captain's cabin. And we talk. Sometimes Uncle Dave calls in, many times Professor Bauer calls in. So stick around after the show tonight. And we can expand on some things and keep talking. You guys get to call in and talk in the captain's cabin as well. So tonight, I want us to shift gears from the meditations of Marcus Aurelius and the psychology behind that. I love to do, and I get camped out in psychological series for a while because I like that stuff. It means something to me, and I hope I can impart that to you. And boy, I look really yellow. I think it's because I turned off all the big lights tonight, so we could kind of be in the dark with the blue light, the candle light, and all of that. Candle just looks bright back there. That's a candle burning right there. So you can't see it, though, if you're not watching the video. But I wanted to. I've got a couple of stories. Tonight we're going to focus on a couple of Native American stories and Native American ghosts. And I'm also going to play a couple of clips for you. So some of them, some of you have heard before, but not in a very solid format. And I've got them loaded into the system now so you can hear those. There's some old ones, and I put a link here. I'll put this again. If you want to go over here to that link, you can hear a couple of old clips. I'll tell you what they are right now. These are old, at least 12 years old that I put these up in there in SoundCloud. I'm surprised they're still there. I lost them on my computer and in my discs storage just long time ago. I don't know where they are. So this is the only place they are, and I couldn't download them. It wouldn't allow me to download my own stuff from my page over there because I wanted to download them and put them into the show tonight, but I couldn't figure that one out. So the first one you'll hear, it's entitled "What You Doing There?" And it's a little hard to hear. It's buried in the white noise. But Rainey and I and some friends of ours, I'll mention Nicole Jones. She came along with us, and Mitch Jones. And they're the ones who did the filming of, if you remember, the John Ward and I doing History Trippers. They're independent filmmakers, and they filmed that and put together that trailer for us, which is over on my main website, scottallenroberts.com. You can scroll down the page and see that one. That's Nicole and Mitch Jones' work. And excuse my cough. I've had this cough for like 20 years off and on. Just bad bronchial junk. So it's been there forever. I had somebody concerned about my cough 25 years ago. And I've seen the doc about it. It says, it's because I used to smoke a lot more. What is it? And he said, well, you could quit smoking. He says, no, it's this and that and the other thing with my bronchial, blah, blah, my asthma. That reminds me of Piggy from Lord of the Flies, which we were talking about the other night. The boys stranded on the island, and Piggy says, I can't do a lot of physical labor, mostly because of my asthma. So I do have some asthma. So Leslie Holker was just going to listen tonight, but Scotty, get some Moulin. I should. I've been told that before, probably by you and some other people. I do need to pick some of that up. I help my lungs a little bit and my bronchial system, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to hear about that. So, by the way, I had this shirt on last night. Remember, I stuck the patch on in the captain's cabin, the Star Trek patch, when Professor Bauer and I were talking. Well, look what Rainey did for me today. We washed this shirt up, and she did this. Shebang! Now, it's meant to be subtle. It's a subtle gray, and it's got kind of crackulature or whatever the word is. It's very cool, and she imprinted that on my shirt today. So there. Now it's official. And somebody said, that's not very bright. I said, it's not meant to be. It's supposed to be subtle. So there it is. That's my Star Trek shirt. So if you were looking at me and saying, wasn't he wearing that shirt last night? Yes, I was. But it was cleaned in between. And now it's got an emblem on it. So pine away, all those of you who wish you had one. But we can make them for you. Just get a hold of Rainey. 2 loons, tumblers, and wearables. Anyway, these 2 clips that are over on SoundCloud, that link I put up in here, if you listen to those, the What You Doing There is the first one. It's really hard to hear because it's buried in the white noise. And yes, Grumpy Stack, I have booby bling right there. I'll just show it off again. Boom, boobies down here. Because it's not as perky as it was when I was 20. So now it's down here. So it's up a little higher. And that first one, we were sitting in an old building. It was with Nicole Jones and Mitch Jones and a couple of other friends of ours and Rainey. And we got some fantastic pictures of this thing. We were down talking, and our photographers, they were taking some pictures, and I saw him across the room, took a picture of us, and he said, what the hell is that? And he's looking at his camera, digital. And he says, hold still, everybody. He takes another picture. He goes, there it is again. And we came over, we looked, and he took about 3 or 4 pictures, and there was over me and Rainey, you could see this tall shadow figure with shoulders and a head going all the way up to the top of the frame. And you could barely see through it. It was so thick in the middle. And there was nothing, we looked all around, there was nothing casting shadows on us like that. But in the successive pictures he took, you saw it standing in the middle of the frame like this, if you're looking at the screen, and it kept moving off to the side. And finally, the 3rd or 4th picture he took, you just see just a trail end of it. It's almost like he's like, oops, I didn't want to be in that picture. And he's moving out. Oh, no pictures. And so it was very interesting. But, and if I can ever find those photos, I'll show them to you. Maybe in the captain's cabin, we can come up with them. Because, well, if I were to look for them right now, I'd have to go out here and I'd have to go, oh, hey, you know what? You know what I might do right now is just see if they're anywhere. If I just type in the word Winona. And Winona is the town we were in. And nope, it's not there. So it's on some other disc somewhere. Oh, I know where I saw them. They were on like a Google Photos or something, and a long time ago. So they're out there, and we'll show them to you. Maybe if we pick around tonight after the show, we'll see if we can find them of that black image. But this is the location we were at where I got that first recording from that link I gave you, and that link says Matthew Sainsbury, phantom is a good word for it. Probably just a shadow figure, a shadow person. It was very interesting. And so this old antique shop was where we were in Winona, Minnesota, which is, if you're from around here, Winona is down in southern Minnesota on the river. And it was an old river town, a river port town, I guess you'd call it. And I can't remember if it's the Mississippi or the St. Croix, but there were a lot of the buildings there were bars and brothels, as you can imagine. Those of you like my kids who weren't familiar with the term brothel, whorehouse is what you might call it. And so down in the basement, there was, because of the way the city streets had been built up and so on, there's an old stairway, just a rickety old wooden stairway that goes up to the ceiling and stops. It's been concreted over. And that was the old stairway that would go to the outside door, and people would come in there to visit the brothel. And so I set up some equipment there and a recorder, and I sat and I was trying to be very respectful. And I said, if there are any women who used to work here when this was a brothel, I said, I don't mean to be insulting. I'm not belittling anything. I said, but if you worked here in that capacity, I said, would you be willing to talk to me? And of course, we didn't hear anything while we're doing it. And when we played the recording back, when I asked that question, that's the what you doing there. It's at that link that I pasted in here earlier, where a woman's voice is buried pretty deep in the white noise, but you can hear it very softly. She goes, what you doing there? Right after I asked, could you make yourself known? Would you like to say hello? And she said, what you doing there? Kind of like, how you doing? And so I thought that was very interesting. So that is on that clip that I could not import into the show to play it for you. And the other one there is the one that says, fuck you both. And you can hear it whispering that. I was saying something on the recording about me holding a flashlight. It was at the Mounds Theater in St. Paul, the old historic theater. And we had seen a face. I saw the face looking over my cameraman's shoulder. And immediately I started asking questions. And I said, I have a flashlight in my hand. Can you move the flashlight? And you hear, while I'm talking, you hear something go, fuck you. You hear it kind of like that. It's picking up on the higher decibels. And but then as a blank spot, and then you hear it go, fuck you both. And it said it several times as we were talking. That was the one where I said, now we didn't know it was talking to us until we played the recording back. But I said, if you'd like to talk to us, I said, this equipment, I said, can record your voice for posterity. I said, wouldn't that be cool? And the voice on the tape went, ooh, almost like mocking me. And then it said, fuck off again. So I thought that was just pretty cool. And so it was very interesting. Hey, Brianna, welcome to the chat room. And talking ghosts tonight. So those are the two recordings you'll hear over there. Now, I do have a couple here that I've imported into the show. I'm going to play you. These you've heard before in different forms, not so well done. They're the Big Bang from when Rocky Stucci and John Ward and I went over to the Fernhill House over in South Minneapolis. And it's over on Lake Street, for those of you who know the lay of the land. And it's on Lake Street just west of Lake Calhoun, Lake of the Isles, and all of the inner city lakes over there. And it's one of the only houses left standing there. Well, I take that back. There's a bunch of houses, but it's mostly apartment buildings now, cheap-looking apartment buildings, and Brugger's Bagels and different restaurants and things like that, all along that strip down to the lake. And so we were there, and the house was built in 1850, and it was built by French Canadians. It was also a roadhouse in its day. Back Fort Snelling, which is about a 15 to 20-minute drive from there in the cities. Back then, when they'd go marching out toward the west of what was Minnesota and into the Dakotas, this was one of the first stops. It was about a 20-mile march from or a day's march from the fort. And of course, I'm sure the elect few got to use the brothel that was there at the Roadhouse. And so we're there, and we picked up some things with that. And we got a couple of guys talking to us. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play these two clips so you can hear them. John and I, to set the stage, we're in the main floor of the house, and we're kind of laughing. And John says something about, I've told this story before, that he sees a woman in red, and he said she's riding a guy right here. This is where I can see it in my mind's eye. And So we started doing a little locker room banter about, oh, she's riding him, eh? And over us, right at the very beginning of this clip, you're going to hear something go, shh, 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 shh. It was either shushing us, but it was making that sound. And then at the end of the clip, there's two guys that talk to each other that weren't there. One is in a language we have not yet deciphered, or some kind of pig Canadian or whatever. I don't know what it was. And the other guy in French says, Mundu. Remember that? Talked about that one. And so let me play this for you so you can hear this a little better than when I played it for you before. Now it's going to start right away when I click it here. Now listen to this.
So, if you were right, you didn't actually live and see that you were right. I kind of realized I do.
Now, I can't talk. The mic gets muted out during the clip. But if you heard there at the very beginning, you hear the shh, shh, shh over our voices. And then at the end, you hear John talking and laughing, and you hear something that says something. It sounds like a happy or nice loon, like that. And the other voices, Mundu. Now that sounds like me. Now, since this recording, which was in 2014 when this was made, I had learned more about how you will get spirits and ghosts that will mimic people and their voices. And we got that a couple of times. The next clip has somebody saying welcome, and it almost sounds like Rocky, but it's not Rocky, and it's at the very end of the clip. We'll get to that one in a second. I'm going to play this one for you once more. Listen to this very close. Listen to the shushing at the beginning, and then the two voices at the end. And you can hear them. They're echoing off the walls in the room. It's an empty house, wood floors, and it's echoing just like our voices were. Listen to this again.
So, if you were right, you didn't actually live and see that you were right. I kind of realized I do. So, if you were right, you didn't actually live and see that you were right. I kind of realized I do. So, if you were right, you didn't actually live and see that you were right. I kind of realized I do.
So there you go. I played that 3 times so you could hear that a little more clearly. So that was that link. And now let me play you the other one, the Big Bang one. This is where we're down in the basement of the same house, same night. And you'll hear a little garbly stuff at the beginning. That's the spirit box. Rocky's sitting on the floor with his back against the wall of the basement wall. And he's holding the spirit box. And he's getting some garbly voices. And then you hear the big bang. And you hear me stand up. I was on the stairway and I yell, hello! And we run up the stairs. You hear John's very famous line, which we've talked about and laughed about on this show, where he says, get me out of this fucking house. And we go upstairs, and then you hear, toward the end of this, you hear that huffing. No idea what that was. We didn't hear it with our ears. And then you hear, right at the end of the huffing, you hear, welcome. It almost sounds like Rocky, but it's not Rocky. So let me play this for you. This one's really interesting. Listen to this one. Here we go.
Wait. What tipped over? Hello, thank you for the sound. What was that? Hello, is anyone here? Welcome. Hey, thank you. Thank you for the sign. What the hell was that?
Now, at the very end there, that was John panting at the end when he went to grab his recorder that he had left sitting on the kitchen counter. He goes, oh, he's just freaked out, and he grabs that recorder. And so you can hear that. I'm going to play that for you one more time, even though you may have heard this before. I remember I turned my microphone to hear it playing off the speakers of my computer. Well, this is the actual video now, or the sound that you can hear. Let's play that one more time for you. And I should find that one, Brianna. Brianna will tell you about it a bit in the chat room, or she can call in and she'll tell us about it. Here's this Big Bang, we call it again. Listen for this.
What tipped over? Hello, thank you for the sound. What was that? Hello? Hello, is anyone here? Welcome. Hey, thank you. Thank you for the sign. What was that?
Okay. Now, that was very interesting. And what you had was John had left a little handheld recorder up on the kitchen counter, and we were down in the basement when that big bang took place. We heard it upstairs, and it seemed to shake the entire house. So it was pretty crazy. And we looked all over. We couldn't replicate the sound. And you heard how loud it was. So, Dave, I do not have the recording of the Lakota from the ranch house. Some of those things, those old ones, are lost on an old disc that I remember went bad when we were out at still living at the ranch in 2010. And we had a big disk drive, auxiliary disk drive that we stored all that stuff on, and it went bad. And so to find those, probably not existent anymore. But we did have a few EVPs from the ranch house. And we had one. I don't know if I told you guys about this or if I was telling somebody else, but we're down in the basement. Remember, Dave, you remember that creepy little old basement of the ranch house? And I had asked, I said, is anybody here that would like to talk to us? And of course, we didn't hear any of this audibly. It was on the recording. You hear a man's voice, I already told them. Like that. Like, frustrated. Then a woman's voice said something like, what did she say? He said, I already told them. No, the woman's voice was first. And I think she said something like, well, tell them. Tell them. And the man goes, I already told them. So that was at the ranch house back in 2008. We recorded that. And that's where Rainey got a Lakota word. Well, we didn't know it was Lakota at the time. She got the word Hoiwechi, and she wasn't quite sure what it meant. And this was back at a time where Ruben was often, we couldn't find him. He was in a bad place for a while, as you all know, and he's talked about that. And so I didn't have him to ask. And I took it to one of my reenacting historian friends who I knew spoke some Native American language. And I asked him, what does it sounded? Rainey said it sounded like they were saying La Choi. And he said, no, that's not La Choi. That's Hoiwechi. And he says, Hoiwechi, you know what that means in Lakota or Dakota? He says, it means get out. He says, it basically means, he says, not a hostile version of the word, though. It's a version of the word. It's like, I'm okay here. You can leave me alone. You can go your own way. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Kind of all that in the implication of Hoiwechi. And so she got a Native American is speaking Lakota saying, get out. Hoiwechi. Hoiwechi. I got to run that one by Ruben again and get him to clarify the meaning on that. So, yeah, that was some of the stuff at the ranch house. But let me get into a little story for you. Um, this is more Native American legend, if you will. It's a Cherokee legend, and it is called The Daughter of the Sun. This isn't so much a ghost story as it is Native American legend, and it goes like this. The sun lived on the other side of the sky vault, but her daughter lived in the middle of the sky, directly above the earth. And every day as the sun was climbing along the sky arc to the west, she used to stop at her daughter's house for dinner. Now the sun hated the people on the earth, because they could never look straight at her without screwing up their faces. She said to her brother, the moon, "My grandchildren are ugly. They grin all over their faces when they look at me." But the moon said, "I like my younger brothers. I think they are very handsome, because they always smiled pleasantly when they saw him in the sky at night, for his rays were milder." The sun was jealous and planned to kill all the people. So every day when she got near her daughter's house, she sent down such sultry rays that there was a great fever, and the people died by the hundreds, until everyone had lost some friend, and there was fear that no one would be left. They went for help to the little men, who said the only way to save themselves was to kill the sun. The little men made medicine and changed 2 men to snakes, the spreading adder and the copperhead, and sent them to watch near the door of the daughter of the sun to bite the old sun when she came next day. They went together and bid near the house until the sun came. But when the spreading adder was about to spring, the bright light blinded him, and he could only spit out yellow slime, as he does to this day when he tries to bite. She called him a nasty thing and went by into the house, and the copperhead crawled off without trying to do anything. So the people still died from the heat, and they went to the little men a second time for help. The little men made medicine again and changed 1 man into the great Uktena, and another into the rattlesnake, and sent them to watch near the house and kill the old sun when she came for dinner. They made the Uktena very large, with horns on his head, and everyone thought that he would be sure to do the work. But the rattlesnake was so quick and eager that he got ahead and crawled up just outside the house. And when the sun's daughter opened the door to look out for her mother, he sprang up and bit her, and she fell dead in the doorway. He forgot to wait for the old sun, but went back to the people, and the Uktena was so very angry that he went back too. Since then, we pray to the rattlesnake and do not kill him, because he is kind and never tries to bite if we do not disturb him. The Uktena grew angrier all the time and very dangerous, so that if he even looked at a man, that man's family would die. After a long time, the people held a council and decided that he was too dangerous to be with them, so they sent him up to Gulun Lati, and he is there now. The spreading adder, the copperhead, the rattlesnake, and the Uktena were all men. When the sun found her daughter dead, she went into the house and grieved, and the people did not die any more, but now was the world dark all the time, because the sun would not come out. They went again to the little men, and these told them that if they wanted the sun to come out again, they must bring back her daughter from Sugina, the ghost country, in Usunhiai, and the darkening land in the west. I have to get Reuben on the pronunciations of those. They chose 7 men to go, and each gave a sour wood rod a handbreadth long. The little man told them that they must take a box with them, and when they go to Tutsginai, they would find all the ghosts at a dance. They must stand outside the circle, and when the young women passed in the dance, they must strike her with the rods, and she would fall to the ground. Then they must put her into the box and bring her back to her mother, but they must be very sure not to open the box even a little way until they were home again. They took the rods and a box and traveled 7 days to the west until they came to the darkening land. There were a great many people there, and they were having a dance just as if they were at home in the settlements. The young woman was in the outside circle, and as she swung around to where the 7 men were standing, one struck her with his rod, and she turned her head and saw him. As she came around the second time, another touched her with his rod, and then another and another, until at the 7th round she fell out of the ring. And they put her into the box and closed the lid fast. The other ghosts seemed never to even notice what had happened. They took up the box and started home toward the east. In a little while the girl came to life again and begged to be let out of the box, but they made no answer and went on. Soon she called again and said she was hungry, but still they made no answer and went on. After another while she spoke again and called for a drink and pleaded so that it was very hard to listen to her. But the men who carried the box said nothing and still went on. When at last they were very near home, she called again and begged them to raise the lid just a little because she was smothering. They were afraid she was really dying now, so they lifted the lid to give her a little air, but as soon as they did so, there was a fluttering sound inside, and something flew past them into the thickets, and they heard a redbird cry, "Quish, quish, quish," in the bushes. They shut down the lid and went on again to the settlements, but when they got there and opened the box, it was empty. So we know the redbird is the daughter of the sun. And if the men had kept the box closed as the little men had told them to do, they would have brought her home safely, and we could bring back our other friends also from the ghost country. But now when they die, we can never bring them back. The sun had been glad when they started to the ghost country, but when they came back without her daughter, she grieved and cried, my daughter," and wept until her tears made a flood upon the earth, and the people were afraid the world would be drowned. They held another council and sent their handsome young men and women to amuse her so that she would stop crying. And they danced before the sun and sang their best songs, but for a long time she kept her face covered and paid no attention, until at last the drummer suddenly changed the song, when she lifted up her face and was so pleased at the sight, she forgot her grief and smiled. That's the story of the daughter of the sun. And it's not really a ghost story, but it's one of those mystical, magical stories from Native American culture. There's another little Native American piece that I wanted to read for you. And that one is about the Nalusa Falaya. The Nalusa Falaya. Nalusa Falaya. So now, the elder looked up, and by the way, this is just a native legend. The elder looked up from a deep gaze into the hot fire. His face was sober and looked directly at the kids. I will tell you about the Nalusa Falaya, and you must tell this story to your children when I am gone, the elder stated. There once were 2 young boys that were rebellious and wanted to have no part of the Chata people. And there were not many rules to the Chata people, but the rules that were given, everyone was expected to follow them. Every child helped around the settlement until they were old enough to help their fathers in with their jobs. Now, for the 2 rebellious boys, they did the exact opposite. Their father wanted them to do good, wanted them to enjoy childhood. The only rule he gave the boys was to never enter or go near the forbidden forest, for the Nalusa Falaya would get them if they did. One night, As their family was getting ready for bed, the boys snuck out of their family's wattle and wanted to explore the area down by the forest. They walked down an old grassy path that was moonlit. They held their hands out over the chaha blades of grass and could feel the cool air around them. When they got to the edge of the Osapa, they could only make out the chaha trees at the edge of the forest. They walked into the forest and continued down the path that led to a pond. The boys were silent as they made their walk down the path. They could hear the wind through the chaha trees. They could hear the toads croaking in the meadow. They came across a pile of brush that covered the pathway. Beyond the pile of brush, they could see a chaha shadowy figure with long arms and fingers. The figure was dense and pitch black. The figure stood about 8 foot tall, and all of a sudden the forest was quiet. The figure was still as the air around them. The boys looked at each other, and when they looked back at the figure was gone. The one boy looked back at his friend and asked, "Did you see that?" A typical ghost hunter line, by the way. Did you see that? Did you hear that? The other boy said, "Yes, but let's keep going." They continued down the path and came up to a small pond that was lit by the moon. There were chaha weeds that went around the edge, and there were lily pads floating on top. The water was still, and the air was thick. There was a log that covered the pathway. The log started to move toward the boys and then started to stand upright. Again, the chaha dark figure was in front of them. The figure stuck out his hand and slowly rubbed his pointed finger along one of the younger boy's face. The boy could only feel a sharp pain in his cheek and could feel it move down his jawline. The boys were shot with fear and couldn't move. The figure moved closer, and the boys took off running back to their home, running as fast as they could. They could never get ahead of the figure. Behind every tree, the figure stood grabbing at the boys. Breaking away from the dark figure, the boys pushed tree branches out of the way, running down the path. Right when they got to the edge of the forest, the figure grabbed the younger boy by his foot, dragging him back into the forest. The boy screamed as he tried grabbing onto anything as he was being dragged through the dirt. By the time the other boy made it back to the field, he noticed his brother was missing. Running into the wattle, he woke up his father to tell him what had happened. The whole tribe went out to the Osapa to look for the boy, but they could not find him. The boy had to live his life without his brother because they didn't follow instructions and direction. This is why you never go near the forbidden forest. Follow directions and always tell the story of the Nalusa Falea. How about that? So, these are the stories like we tell now. You know, we scare our kids into not doing, don't go out at night, don't sneak out at night because the gremlins will get you or whatever, the ghosts in the backyard or whatever, and things like that. So, parental tales, but it was I thought, a great Native American tale. So, I've got one more, but I'm not sure about how much time. I think this one's pretty short. This is an Abenaki witch story. It goes like this. And these are all Native American. That's what we're doing tonight. So the following story was told by Beulah Tehamant. She's an Abenaki, about 16 years of age. Her home is at Lake George in New York, which I've been up there, by the way. Lake George is up near Fort Ticonderoga in New York, and it's also Fort William Henry has been rebuilt there. You saw Fort William Henry depicted in Last of the Mohicans. That's the fort that was being bombarded by Montcalm's French army. So, but she had visited New York City, Beulah Tehamant, where this story was obtained. And it's given as nearly as possible in her own words. And it goes like this. An old witch was dead, and his people buried him in a tree, up among the branches, in the groves that they used for burial place. Sometime after this in the winter, an Indian and his wife came along looking for a good place to spend the night. There they saw the grove, went in, and built their cooking fire. When their supper was over, the woman looked up, saw long, dark things hanging among the tree branches. What are they? She asked. They are only the dead of long ago, said her husband. I want to sleep. I don't like it at all. I think we had better sit up all night, replied his wife. The man would not listen to her, but went to sleep. Soon after the fire went out, and then she began to hear a gnawing sound, like an animal with a bone. She sat still, very much scared, all night long. About dawn, she could stand it no longer, and reaching out, tried to wake her husband, but could not. She thought him sound asleep. The gnawing had stopped. When daylight came, she went in to her husband and found him dead, with his left side gnawed away completely, and his heart gone. She turned and ran. At last she came to a lodge where there were some people. Here she told her story, but they would not believe it, thinking that she had killed the man herself. They went with her to the place, however. There they found the man with his heart gone, laying under the burial tree, with the dead witch right overhead. They took the body down and unwrapped it. The mouth and face were covered with fresh blood. That's the end of that story. So there's a lot more. I looked up specifically Native American ghost stories. And so there's quite a bit more that's out there. And pretty scary stuff. And now to end this, I'm going to share my screen with you so I can show you a picture I took. Now, I may have shown this to you before in a different way, but when I was in England back in 2015 with my friends Jeff and Nate, and we were pub hopping and castle hopping for 2 weeks. We had rented a car. We drove all over South England and then up into Wales a little bit. And we went to Porchester Castle the first night we were there. And Porchester Castle sits at Porchester Harbor. And I took this picture and got orbs in the picture. So I took them back and I blew them up. And this is what I saw in that orb. Boom. Let's go over here. And here it is. Now, if you can see that, the picture on the left, this was 2005, I'm sorry, not 2015. Picture on the left was the orb. I blew it up 1,600% to be able to see if there was anything in the orb. And the picture on the right is a little drawing I did in Photoshop to show the features that I am seeing in this picture. And what we found out later, the next day, was that Porchester Castle is reported to be haunted for about 800 or 900 years by an old monk. And here you see a man that, if you can see my mouse on the picture here, up here, top of his head is bald, but he's got this ringlet of hair that goes to this long whitish hair. So you can see over here, little ringlet of hair. He's either bald or he's a monk. Top of his head shaved. I saw the ear and the cheekbone and the slightly open mouth and the nose and what looked like a semi-closed eye, and then this big cowl collar, which trails off down below even this picture. So this is what I saw. And that was at Porchester Castle in 2005. And I believe what you're looking at is the profile, the face of the old monk who haunts Porchester Castle. I'm going to stop the screen there. So there we are. Good night, Leslie Holker. We're in the last minute of the show. Within a minute, we'll be done with the radio station and we'll enter in to the captain's cabin. And so I hope you enjoyed that tonight. Yeah, it looks a little like George C. Scott, Barbie D. Ghosts are real, says Matthew Sainsbury. That's right, they are. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get out of here to the radio audience. So I want to say to the radio audience, thank you for being here. Come on over to the YouTube channel if you want to watch the Captain's Cabin, which will go for anywhere from 10 minutes to 2 hours. It all depends on how we all feel tonight. So I want to say, live long and prosper.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
All right, folks, we are off air at Odyssey Radio, and it's now just us over here in the chat room. So I want to thank you for sticking around. You can stick around as long as you like, and we'll do a little talking here tonight. If any of you have a story you want to add to this or want to talk about this stuff, come on over. You can get the link. Here, I'll send the, let me copy the link to call into the channel and paste it into the chat room. There it goes. And we are off air now. I've got the servers. I am going to take a little relief break. So I'll be back in about a minute. So you all sit still. I'll just play you a little something so you can not have to just, I'll just let you stare at the empty screen because I don't really have anything planned. I'm going to go mute on the mic and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Whoo! Bathroom break. Bathroom breaks are good. They're good. All right. So I hope you all enjoyed that tonight. And I want to tell you about this series that I found on YouTube. They've got about 500 episodes up. It's a couple of guys younger than I am, and they're doing their ghost thing. And the further you go back, you can tell, they got their start and they're doing better. And they have a really top-notch production. And it's called Mind something. Hold on a second. Let me find it. Oh, you're getting feedback there. Let me get out of that. They're called Mindseed TV. Mindseed. I'm going to give you a link because you may want to watch some of their programs. Some of them are, it's kind of like when you started watching Ghost Hunters, you notice, or not Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, how you noticed the further they got into that series and the more they did this, the more stuff they would get. And people go, it's fake because they got something every week. Well, you know why they get something every week? Because they become so open and susceptible to all this. They've opened themselves up, maybe a little dangerously sometimes, But I think the more you do this kind of thing, the more you get. The more familiar, if you will, that spirit world becomes with you. You're not just an observer anymore. They kind of know who you are. Oh, I got Uncle Dave is in the. Let's bring Uncle Dave in.
Hey. Oh, I don't have audio.
I'm going to drop the banner.
There we are.
Bring Uncle Dave let's hide the banner. There we go. I'm going to drop the... Here, you'll have to turn your sound down, Dave, or put on headsets because it's coming right back through.
Yeah, I'm trying to get that taken care of.
Here, you'll have to turn your sound down. Okay, there we go. And so if you go over to... Did I paste that in here yet or not? Let me go over to the chat room. Yeah, there you go. Mindseed TV.
And now I can't hear you.
It's kind of well worth watching because it's creepy. Yeah, there you go. Probably mostly because it's creepy. It's kind of well it's a good creepy series. I'm getting feedback from you, Dave.
Yeah, hold on. I got to go get some headsets.
All right.
Hold on.
Just give me the thumbs up when you're ready. All right. So, there was a particular episode that I watched the other day, and I think it's one of their most recent ones. If I look in here, scariest video ever recorded, almost stopped the entire series. Yeah, it's the last one they uploaded 2 weeks ago, and you can see it in their uploads. And in this video, they saw one of the most creepiest things I've ever seen on a video of a ghost hunting. And here, I'm going to add Dave back in. There you go. Can you hear me, Dave?
I'm back on stream. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
You hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. And so in this little video series, if you go over and check them out, yeah, Matthew, that echo is coming from my sound playing through Dave's speakers being picked up by Dave's mic.
That's
so
because I had two windows open.
He's got
the window with the YouTube was still playing, and the YouTube with the stream was playing.
Yeah, I've had that happen before myself. So these guys, they went to a little house to investigate for the owners. It was kind of in the woods, kind of a lake cottage, and it was really nice house and furnished really nicely. But they gave stories of the bumps and the things and openings and things they'd hear in the house. And every time they experienced something, they told them that they would get an uptick in weird stuff like cockroaches would start showing up, or flies, or mice, things like that, snakes even. It was just all of a sudden they would experience something in the house, and they'd get this physical manifestation of little beasties and bugs and things. So in this video, both of the guys were at different spots in the house, and they were both seeing the same thing. They saw a chair slide across the kitchen floor, a wine glass get knocked off the counter with papers. It went crash, flush, and the chair slid across. And they both caught it from different angles. And so it was very interesting to see that. And there was a story about the lake and this property that had been haunted for a long time, and that there was a woman who had been killed in the lake or dumped in the lake or something. And so they're getting all this activity is going on. They went into the garage, which was more like a, you know what a carport is. No front door on it. If there was, it was folded back or something. And stables on the inside and stuff like that. And they're getting all kinds of shaking noises and stuff. And so then they said, well, we got to do it because we said we would. They walked down. They wanted to do something by the lake because there had been the woman's death there. And this is all handheld stuff. They don't have a camera crew. And so they go down by the lake on the dock, and they're doing a Ouija board, which they use as a tool, an investigative tool. They're not kind of dumb saps. They're pretty keen and not rubes about what they're doing. And you see them sitting there, and you can see the blackness of the lake out behind them. And the one guy, you see him, he kind of looks, and he goes, oh, fuck, no. And he jumps up, and the other guy jumps, and they both jump, and they run. You see their cameras, it's facing the ground. And they're doing little interviews like this, head talking at the camera afterwards. And he said, this is the event that made me almost drop out of doing this completely. But he said, what I saw, and the camera, he says, did pick it up, and we'll play it for you. He says, I saw a head rise out of the water about this far. And he said it was a woman's head, looked like a woman's head with hair, wet hair stringing down. You didn't see the eyes. Or I thought he said he saw the eyes, but I didn't see him. And so, sure enough, he shows this clip, and it's really dark in the background. And so they enhance it just a little bit, and you see this head just come up like this, and there's wet, stringy hair. And you could hear it in their voices. He was like, fuck no. And he gets up and runs. And so watch some of their videos. They're a little creepy if you're into that stuff, because they've gotten to the point, especially in their later videos, where they've been doing this for long enough that I think they're like the Ghost Adventure guys, where they're getting it all the time now. They're either they've opened up to it and they see it. Sometimes it scares the shit out of them. Sometimes they're like, fuck, I'm getting out of here. And a couple of times that happened to them. So
it makes me think of one of those first ghost hunter shows when they were at the prison the first time.
Yes.
And what's his name is standing on the cell block lane, and this shadow figure steps out in front of him, and he turns around and runs as fast as he can in the opposite direction. And Jason is like, what the fuck are we here for? We are here to find these things, not run away from them.
It was Brian.
Yes, it was Brian.
Brian. Hold on a second. Yes, what, sweetheart?
It doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit?
So now we gotta move something. And I'm surprised because the air mattress fit and it was the same exact size. And now it's not fitting.
Oh, that's because it's got a frame to it.
Hello, Rowan.
You're going to be able... Uncle Dave says hi.
Hi.
She got this...
Oh, that was a sassy hi.
I generally don't pick up... I don't like used beds.
Damon's helping me, though.
I don't like used mattresses. I don't like used beds. And other people have slept on them. You don't know what they've done on those beds.
Yeah, I don't like.
And you don't know what's been spilled on it. You don't know how many times it's been peed on, or other things.
Yeah, bodily
and
fluids. Good. Ick.
So, but they had this. They were moving, and they had this what looked like a pretty nice box spring and mattress sitting on the metal frame on wheels. And Rowan brought it home without asking.
Say, did the kids just bring it home?
They just rolled it home.
Me and Armani did.
And you don't know
like
who
you
Armani is. Doesn't matter. A friend down
like
the street.
You do.
And I said, no. I said, you will bring that back. I said, there is not going to be, I don't know if that's flea infested, lice infested, what's happened to it, and blah, blah, blah. So I made her, the two of them, her and her friend, rolled that thing down the street. It's about 10 houses that way. They rolled that all the way back down the middle of the street and brought it back. And so I got to thinking about it, and I thought, and she talked to me. She built her case. I said, okay, I'll go take a look at it. I said I was mad because you didn't ask me. Not mad. I was parentally angry. And I said,
was he mad, Ron? So,
yeah, he was yelling at me. He was like,
yep. Yeah, it was exactly like that.
Yeah, but you don't bring mattresses home.
Oh, Steve Clark just said last night someone called my name while I was sitting in the kitchen, but I live alone.
I have that happen all the time to me.
Dave has that happen a lot. I've had it happen a couple of times.
I have it happen all the time. It's usually by
we'll
mom
talk
or
about
my
that
dad.
in a minute, Steve. Yeah. So, Rowan dragged that thing home. I made her take it back. And she brought it back. And people were like, well, okay, if your dad said so. And so then I got to thinking, and I thought maybe I was a little too harsh, too quick.
Yeah.
Shut it. I'll make you roll it back again.
No, you're not going to make me roll it back.
So I went down there with her, and I looked at it, and it looked like it was in really good shape. A couple of scuffs on it,
no
type of thing. No stains. It didn't stink.
That's a plus. That's
so
plus.
I said, okay, you can take it home. And
what
I
size
said,
is it?
And I made her roll it back.
What size
and,
is it?
What's that?
What size is it? What size
it's
bed?
a
full
full size bed.
Full,
Okay.
Full.
was gonna say she doesn't
And
need a
so,
queen size bed at her age.
I carried it down the stairs and brought it down here for her. She's trying to clean her room out.
Damon's helping me.
Now she's finding out that
Damon.
Damon is Flynn's friend. He's
Oh,
spending
okay.
the night.
Okay.
Spending the night because the whole camp thing and mom's going to camp.
So he's being a proper
He's
gentleman.
Uncle Dave. You're so
Yeah.
overdramatic.
Yeah, Dave. Oh, you're so overdramatic. I can't stand it. So, yeah, she's got a new bed. It's a used bed. I'm not big on that, but it was okay. It was in decent shape. I had to put myself in the mindset of, okay, it's like my aunt giving me a bed. So they were decent people. They were clean people. So hey, you want to shut the door if you do that? Don't like that. Flynn's down there helping. So he and Damon. So enjoy the new bed, Rowan, says Barbie D. She left the room now, but she'll be back, I'm sure.
So she doesn't have to sleep on the floor anymore.
Steve, when you think about that voice from last night, was that anybody you know? Did you recognize the voice?
That's my first question too.
Could it have been Gene? Could it have been somebody else? Or was it a voice that you didn't recognize? I'm curious about that. So I got somebody texting me, I'm only going to look because it might be rainy. Having arrived at camp. No, it's not. So I don't think it is. Who's that? Nope. So
That's a girlfriend.
whatever.
Really? And then you yell at me when I have a boyfriend?
You're 10.
Yeah, and
So
yeah, but
12's the right age. He's a guy.
and he's a guy, and he's not your brother. So
That's right. That's right.
He is my brother.
Oh,
are you
Flynn's
talking
her
about
brother.
Flynn?
Oh,
Are you talking
yeah.
about Flynn, or are you talking about Damon?
An Allen wrench. There is a thing of Allen wrenches.
Where?
If not one sitting on my desk here in that little bin, there is one out in the garage in the big roll tool chest, or in the black tool bag that's on top of it. You might have to dig a little bit.
Mm. If they're Trevor wrenches, they'll all be metric, so that won't work.
No, just Allen. Yeah. Trevor is metric. Allen is. Yeah, there you go. So, let's see. Now, I've told a lot of my ghost stories on this
So
show.
you want to hear a ghost story?
If you've got one.
I've got one. So I did a film in West Virginia, Bethany, West Virginia, which has a little cottage called Bethany College, and it's a
Appropriately
little
so.
seminary that was started back in the 1700s.
Okay.
And,
Here's Steve Clark.
Coming in.
Let's bring Steve Clark in. Yeah.
right.
Hey, Steve.
Steve.
Dave will preempt your story for a few minutes. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing all right. Trying to get cool.
Yeah, I see that. Steve's always naked when he calls in, by the way, Uncle Dave.
It's over 100 degrees.
We
there.
just let him get away with it.
It's over 100 degrees there.
That's right.
Voices are breaking up. I can't understand what's being said.
Which one?
The voice from last night?
No, now you guys are coming through clear.
Okay.
A little bit ago, you wasn't coming
you couldn't
through clear.
understand us. Okay. So tell us about this
Now
voice
you're
you
breaking
heard.
up.
It's internet connection. Tell us about the
And I
voice
didn't
from last
recognize
night.
your voice. Huh?
Tell us about the voice you heard.
Tell
I
us
don't think
about
you're
the
hearing
voice
us.
you heard.
Well, it was a female's voice, but I didn't recognize it.
Okay. Well, I had a
No.
woman talk to me through a spirit box. That old story I've told before. That said she was my aunt. I did not recognize her voice, but it even asked me questions. So, where's Janie, her sister, my mom, things like that. So, Steve Clark is buffering. I'm going to take that first one out. Hold on, Steve. Let's kick that first one from the studio. There we go. Let's try that, Steve. Can you hear me any better? If not, it's the internet connection where you are, more than likely. I don't think it's working, brother.
Now you're coming through clear. You come through clear for a little bit, and then you start breaking up.
Yeah, it's a buffering thing with the stream. So
Okay.
Sorry about that. So what do you think?
It was a female's voice.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I didn't recognize it, and it was a female voice, but I didn't recognize it.
Boy. So yeah, I've heard voices a couple of times like that. So, well, thanks for sharing that, brother.
There was other experiences, like I had a radio that doesn't have batteries in it. There's an electric radio, and it wasn't plugged in. And I was here in my room one night. I heard music softly playing, and I got up to try to find it, and I heard where this radio was, and it was playing music like about from the 1940s.
Ah.
And it was not plugged in. I threw that radio away.
That's pretty interesting.
Not going to have that radio
now. That's not the same kind of story, but Michael Shermer told a story about a radio. Michael Shermer is the titular head of the American, I don't know if it's American Skeptic Society or something like that, but you've seen him around for years with their magazine and his books that he's written, and he's part of the Skeptic Society out there. And he was a skeptic of everything. And then a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, his father passed away. And I don't remember the details of the story, but he was with his fiance, and a radio popped on in his house, and it was playing. Steve, I'm going to remove you because it's going to keep doing that, brother. Sorry. And the radio turned on and started playing a favorite song of his father's. Let's put it that way. He highly identified this song with his father. And Michael Shermer even wrote after that. He says, I've been a skeptic all these years. He's the head of the Skeptic Society. He's got all these books out. And he said, I believe I encountered a paranormal experience. And now I don't know where he's come down on it since then. I read his own words on this, and that's what he said. I don't know if he's been shunned or disowned by the Skeptic Society, but he's not like a full-blown, non-skeptical person anymore. He just said, that just told me that there's more going on than I think there is. And he says most skeptics are skeptics because they don't have the experience. He says, when you have the experience, it becomes anecdotal because you experienced it. He says, but my fiance was there with me. And he said, I'm a believer in certain things right now. And that happened through a radio as well.
Right. And I've always said you're a skeptic until it happens to you. And then you have to reevaluate everything you thought you believed.
That's pretty much it.
So I will go back to the story.
Yeah, let's tell me your West Virginia story. I may have heard this one.
We're in Bethany, West Virginia, and they're doing a film, and I had signed on as the property master and the set dresser, and there were just so many paranormal things that happened in the 2 weeks that we were shooting there. We were doing a film about the gentleman that founded this college.
Okay.
And so one of the things, this didn't happen to me personally. This is something that was relayed to me by one of the professors there after sitting at lunch with us, and we were all telling our individual paranormal experiences. But I love this story. The story is great. So back in the 1940s, the dorm that I was staying in was a woman's dorm in the 40s. And back then, women couldn't have boyfriends beyond the lobby. They had a sitting room in the lobby.
Okay.
And that's where their boyfriends had to meet them and stuff. They weren't allowed to go upstairs to any of the rooms because it's a seminary. It's a Christian school, and you know how they are about rules. So this girl was dating a man who was in the Navy, 1940s. It's World War II. And his ship was in Wheeling, and they had been out to dinner and stuff, and dancing, whatever kids did in the 40s. He brought her back to school. In the process of driving home, they were having an argument. He went in with her. They continued to argue in the sitting room, and finally she said, "I'm done with this. I'm going upstairs. Go home. Go back to your ship." She went upstairs to her room, which is on like the second or third floor. But on the back side of the building is a slope. So second or third floor is like sixth floor from the ground on the back side of the building.
Sure.
And there was some large trestle or something going up the side of the building that had ivy and flowers or something growing on it. I don't know what the specifics were, but it had plant life growing on it.
Drain pipe?
I don't think it was a drain pipe. No, I think it was a trestle.
Fireplace.
From the way it was described. But anyways, she's in her room and she hears tapping on the window.
Nice.
So she opens the window, and this sailor has climbed up the outside to her window because he is not done with this argument. Okay.
Oh.
He wants to get it resolved.
He wants to argue some more.
Well, I think he wanted it resolved before he left for sea, because you never know if you're coming back or not. It's a war.
Right.
He didn't want to go away with all this bad blood between them.
Sure.
So he's trying to climb into the window because he's standing on who knows what, 6 floors up. And he's got one leg in the window, and she's freaking out because he's not being quiet. Okay. And sure enough, she can't have a man in her room. Okay. So she's pushing him back. You can't come in. You can't come in. He's trying to come in. He loses his balance and falls, breaks his neck, dies. Okay. Now the story goes that she let out a blood-curdling scream. He may have been screaming as well as he was falling.
No doubt.
Intense blood-curdling scream.
And of course, it's not like the movies. It's not like the movies where you go, ah! It was probably more like a split second to the ground.
But
doesn't take long to fall 6 stories.
It doesn't. And there'd be a big thud at the end.
Thud.
Okay. So there's the blood-curdling scream, and then there's silence. Okay. Now, story is that for a week, she sobbed constantly. She stayed in her room and just cried and cried and cried and cried uncontrollably. Totally understandable. And then it went silent. And when they'd gone in the room to check on her, she'd hung herself. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Now, what's freaky about this is that on the anniversary of this week, there is, on the anniversary of the night, a blood-curdling scream that wakes up everybody in that damn building.
Okay.
And then there is silence. And then for a week, you can hear nothing but sobbing coming from that room. To the point where the girls that stay in that room move out because it's like too freaky.
Right.
Okay. And now it's no longer just a girls' dorm and stuff. But I'm assuming they probably do, like most colleges do, the East Wing is for women and the West Wing is for men or whatever. So it's not necessarily just girls that are there, but the people that are assigned that room are so freaked out by this, they don't stay after that week. they move to a different place because it's just,
no doubt.
It's uncontrollable crying and sobbing from nowhere. You're walking around the room, you can hear it in the room, but you can't pinpoint where it's coming from.
Sure.
And it continues to happen. So that's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Also in this building, they had a room where objects would go missing. Every year, people reported small items like compacts and lipstick or combs or whatever. Small items were cut every year. Somebody reported something stolen out of this room. Okay. So in the 90s, when I was there, they were doing reconstruction on this place. They were remodeling a lot of these things. And this room had like a built-in cabinet or dresser of some sort, literally framed and nailed to the wall. You can't move it, right? So in the process of the remodeling, they were taking all these built-ins out. Behind the built-in was a big crack in the plaster wall. And stuffed inside this crack was every item that had ever been reported missing from the beginning of them being reported.
Oh, wow.
Is that bizarre or what? And no feasible way. There's no place there wasn't like a hole on the back of the cabinet where something could have drugged something in there, or where something could have fell down the backside and worked its way in there. There was no way for it to logically go from on the cabinet or someplace in the room to behind that cabinet and stuffed into that wall. That nobody knew. And nobody knew that crack was there until they did the reconstruction.
That's pretty crazy.
So bizarre. Now, while I was there, and I think I've told this story before, but my first experience in that room, I got there about 11:30 at night, having driven straight through from Texas on a night when a thunderstorm was just starting. And I was assigned a room in this big Gothic dormitory that was designed after a building from Edinburgh, because that's where he was from, and he was fond of that Scottish architecture, that big Gothic architecture.
Yeah. And by the way, Steve, this is what the temperature is down here in my downstairs. 64 degrees down here right now, with 45% humidity. Now it's going to be about 100 degrees on Sunday here, and it's been in the upper 80s today. But upstairs here, it's 76 degrees.
Yeah.
With the air conditioning on, and it's 64 down here. So there's no way to regulate this house.
Yeah. So
I'm freezing.
I get out of the car, and the entire Gothic building is backlit by lightning. You know, it was very Hollywood. I was like, oh, this is great. And I go in, and I go up to my floor, and I enter my room. And my room is 20 feet long by 10 feet wide. It's this big, long, rectangular room with a whole bunch of beds.
By the way, Matthew Sainsbury, that's 64 Fahrenheit, not Celsius. All right, continue.
And the one wall is all windows, but it's like small, narrow windows with little 6-inch leaded panes that run like floor to ceiling, very Gothic arched windows, right?
Yes.
And again, as I open the door to this dark room, lightning illuminates the room from outside. You know, very Gothic. It's like, oh, okay. So I flip on the light switch. There's a light fixture in the center of the room that sort of illuminates the whole place. And I throw my military duffel bag on one bunk or bed and choose a bed that I'm going to sleep in. And there's a lot of beds in this room. And my thought is, well, you know, back in the old days, they probably had, you know, dorms like this, and all the guys slept in one room together, you know, kind of boarding school like. And I didn't think that much of it. You know, it's an old school in a Gothic room, and I'm like, yeah, it seemed natural to me. There's a bathroom at the end of the hall.
Keep talking, Dave. I want to go check something out while you're doing that.
All right. So there's a bathroom at the end of the hall, or the large room, and inside this, it's like white tiled floor, white tiled walls, white ceiling, and it's a 15 by 15 square room with a drain in the center and what looks like, I think, a towel steamer by the sink on the far wall, and in the corner, a single stall, like a single toilet, right? And I thought, and it's this huge room, and I'm like, they only have one toilet in this huge giant bathroom. It didn't make any sense. And got ready for bed, got into bed, slept like I've never slept before. I mean, I hit the pillow and I was out cold. Got up in the morning and started to walk across the room towards the bathroom. I was intending to shave because I hadn't shaved for quite some time. I'd been on the Renaissance circuit and I was pretty scruffy. And every step I took towards that room, it was like this sense of dread, like someone was putting a wet blanket on top of me, and this sense of dread. And I got to that door and I opened it and I walked across that white tiled floor, and every step I took, it got eerier and eerier, and the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. And I turned the faucet on and I got my razor out and I looked down in the sink, and in my mind's eye, that water turned red like blood and was circulating and going down the drain. And I was like, there's no way I'm putting a razor to my throat.
Sure.
Everything is telling me, get out, get out. And I'm seeing blood in the sink. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm done. I go scruffy today. And
today I go scruffy.
There's a shower at the far end of the hallway. Very European, like one shower for everybody on the floor to use. So I go down there, I take a shower, I feel fine in there. I don't have that sense of dread anymore. I come back to my room and I'm intending to open the duffel bag and get stuff out to find something to wear. When I left the Renaissance Festival to take this movie gig, I left in a hurry. And I grabbed everything that was in my tent, clothing-wise, and just shoved it into this duffel bag and clipped it shut and threw it in the back of the station wagon. Nothing was folded and nothing was put away neatly.
Clean.
So, and there is that. Everything had been worn probably at least once since I'd been to the laundry last. So I open up my go to get my duffel bag out, and laying next to my duffel bag is a neatly folded shirt and t-shirt, underwear, socks, and a pair of pants, all neatly folded, all laid out for me on this bed. I didn't do this, and nothing in my duffel bag would have been neatly folded. And I looked at that pile of clothes and goes, and I dug out some entirely different outfit to wear.
Nice.
And what was nice is the sweatshirt.
I'm not wearing the ghost clothes.
The sweatshirt that had been laid out for me is a sweatshirt that I only wore on laundry days. It was always at the bottom of the duffel bag, so when I got to that sweatshirt, it was time to do laundry. Okay, and the fact that it should have been on the bottom of the duffel bag, which is still looking like it's packed full, and here it is laid out neatly and looks like it's all full.
It was your clothes?
Oh yeah, my clothes, but nothing should have been wrinkle free. Everything should have been just wrinkled and whatever, and it wasn't. And so I got dressed. I went down to the office and checking in with the producers and stuff. And how'd you sleep last night? Oh, it was interesting. This morning was kind of weird. And I was telling them the story about clothes being laid out for me. And she's like, were you in 212? Yeah, I am in 212. I was in 212 for a night. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I had
folded all my underwear.
Costumer who was apparently living across the hall from me. So I said to her, okay, I got to ask a weird question. Did you come into my room this morning and lay clothes out for me? She goes, I don't lay clothes out for the actors. I'm certainly not going to do them for the crew. Oh, no, that's not what I'm asking. Somebody laid my clothes out this morning, and I'm trying to figure out how that happened. And she goes, you're in 212? Yeah, I'm in 212. I was in 212 for a night. This became a theme all day long. Anybody that I talked to, they were like, oh, are you in 212? I was there for a night. I was like, what the hell,
there
people?
for a night.
So I'm like, okay, well, I think I'll look for another room. I was like,
there you go.
And I did. I switched to a different room in a different building. It was too freaky.
And Matthew Sainsbury said, Lord Jesus, drove that dread blood coming from the pipes, Dave. So there you go.
Yeah, but when you see blood going down the drain, you just, even if you know it's just in my mind's eye, I'm imagining this. It's not really blood, it's water. Yeah.
Right.
There's a reason those images are being put in your head.
I've had a few things happen. A if you remember our Mandy, our Amanda,
yeah.
when I was moving out of my townhome into the big house right next door in Bloomington.
You live next to a penitentiary?
What's that?
You live next to a penitentiary?
Yes, the big house. And so I was moving out of a townhome, and Amanda came over to. It's the first I really encountered her up close and personal, but because I'd seen her at the fair as a dancer and so on, and she came over and just offered to come over and help. Sure, and she helped me clean up the old place and move a few things, walk some things across the yards. And she came and she did a cleansing of the new house because she had felt something in the new house. And it was very interesting. There were some things. Now, I don't know what you make of all this stuff, but we know, what was Shakespeare's line about things are stranger than fiction or whatever words he used. It's not in my head at the moment. But so she came over and she did burn sage. And she stood and held my hand in every room. And we stood the corners and burned sage and over the windows and the door. It took an hour and a half. And we were all done. And we sat down in those little red leather chairs I had in front of the fireplace. And we hadn't lit a fire in there. And we're sitting in the sun had gone down. It was kind of dark in the house. A few lights on here and there. It wasn't dark, but it was Kay, her mom, that said, "Do you see that image on the back wall of the fireplace? Do you remember this?
The
Dave?
face in the fireplace.
The face in the fireplace." And there was a face that looked like burned in the soot on the back wall of the fireplace that almost looked like the Shroud of Turin image of Jesus. It was a face and it had the long hair. And I took pictures of it, and it couldn't quite do the same justice on the pictures, but you could see it. You could make it. You could make out curly locks and eyelashes and all kinds of little detail. It was beyond pareidolia, and
it was pretty freaky.
It was pretty freaky, and
it was as freaky. Do you remember the skull in
Well, yeah.
When we did the Templar Lodge, and I had painted that helmet, and I dry brushed that skull, and when you stood at it from angles, you could see a skull in this helmet, and it wasn't painted there, just the way the light hit it.
Just the way the light hit it. Well,
so weird.
Kay and Amanda then said, "Well, that's the spirit of your house. And it's manifesting in the soot on there." And then, of course, we had for months, Amanda would come over there and we'd do scotch and cookies there. And Kay would come every time Kay came into the house. She came into the house through the back door off the patio one time. And the house has already had a bunch of people in it. And she said, "I feel the presence of a jealous woman in this house tonight." She said, "I felt it before, now it's really strong." That was the same night where it was our friend, if you remember Dee Dee.
Yes, I remember Dee Dee quite well.
Dee Dee went and she was changing in my bedroom. And she came out and she said, "Now, you remember my bedroom was 2 bedrooms where they had taken out the middle wall and then refinished the floor there. So it was all wood floors and a huge bedroom. I didn't have much in there. And other than the big bed in the corner and a dresser. And so Dee Dee came out and she said, "I didn't really look at him," she said, "but there was a man standing there leaning on." I had an old antique buffet, like a dining room buffet that I used as a dresser. And I put it kind of lengthways between the 2 rooms. So it was kind of like a little bit of a divider, a waist-high divider. And she said there was a man, he was standing there leaning, his foot crossed, and he was leaning on his elbow on that thing, watching me. And she said, I distinctly remember her saying he had like horns or something on his head. And she said it was freaky. She said, I just ignored him. I got dressed and I came out. And that was that snake.
It was freaky. Didn't stop me from getting undressed in front of him. But
That's right.
That's
right. That's right. And yeah, so she let that go, but that was the same night that Kay said that about a jealous woman.
I remember Dee Dee talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, Dee Dee was a lot of fun. She was a good friend for a long time.
Yeah.
And so then I think she's married and has kids now, for all I know.
Yeah.
But
they all grew up. They all grew up and started families.
They all grew up. Yeah. So anyway, so stuff like that would happen. In that house, that's only one story. There was all kinds of stuff like that.
There was a child entity in that house.
Well, that's what Amanda had identified.
Well, and Rainey, that's where Rainey had the experience in the bathroom with the little handprints on the
that's
glass.
before all the other stuff was happening in that house. That kind of launched it when Rainey had that experience in the house. And that was before Rainey and I were even dating. And she was showering in my bathroom, the master bathroom, and the drawers opened and shut. Stuff
and
like
that's
that.
The house where I dicked with you so much. That's where I came in and moved the little
No, that was the house on the east side of St. Paul, where I had the pictures up above the sink.
No, it was the you had the pictures above the sink in that house on Portland. That was the Portland house.
No, I had a window above the sink.
Yeah,
in that house.
With
talking about there was a shelving unit above the sink in that house that had the big curved hallway in it. Just before I had moved over to that part.
That's not where I messed with your pictures. I messed with them in the.
That's where I found them backwards.
House.
I found them backwards at the house over by Payne Avenue.
No, it's the Portland
Maryland.
house where I messed with those. So if they were getting messed around at the other place, that was somebody else.
Yeah, they were getting messed around at the other place. So that's where they were above
in the kitchen, above the kitchen
turned
window.
around. So that's where they were turned around on the shelf above the sink.
Yeah.
So which I didn't have in the Portland house.
Yes, you did.
So I did not have shelving above my sink in the Portland house.
It's amazing, ladies and gentlemen, when somebody gets old, how their memory shifts.
Yeah, you're watching it right there, folks.
And that's where the girls saw the boy at the well down in the basement.
They didn't see him there. They got freaked out after they found out about that.
I thought you said that they saw him standing in their room one day.
No, that was Rainey seeing in the house next door. No, it was in that house, the Portland house. She saw in that big bedroom of mine. She woke up one morning in the middle of the night, early morning, and saw a little boy standing in the room.
Because wasn't it the Portland house that had the bedroom in the basement that somebody had been doing scrying in?
That was the weird room that Kelly Jo rented from me in that house. We had a friend, another of the belly dancer friends that needed a place. And so she moved into the downstairs was finished. It had, old linoleum flooring, not really nicely done. There was a couple of bedrooms down there, but there was a downstairs bedroom right below the living room, and it had a fireplace down there as well. And that room, when I first moved in there, was filled with graffiti all over the walls and the
candle
ceiling.
Wax.
Candle wax. You could call it occult symbols and things like that, and sayings written all over the wall.
That whoever was there had been scrying.
And there had been something going on. And she was definitely a meth addict. We had met her once. And and that had red carpeting in it.
Let's just say portals were opened and not closed.
And every single one of those walls was done like that. Yeah. And if I remember right, there was a little bar at one end.
Yeah, it was freaky.
And then the closet. And so when Kelly Jo wanted to move in, I said, well, this is the room. And it was a big room. And she said, I'll take it. She said, we'll just paint all that over. And so she painted it all up kind of a gold color and yellowy gold color. And it looked really nice down there. Took a few coats to cover up all the graffiti.
Because it kept bleeding
And
through.
have it not bleed through. No, we painted it with Kills first. And then that.
It still bled
And
through.
so she stayed down there. She never had any bad experiences down there. But before she moved in, we would sometimes come home and find the cats. Where are the cats? There were 3 cats. Rainey had one of her cats there, or 2 cats, and we had 1 cat. My girls and I and Sam. And we couldn't find the cats, and they're closed up down in that bedroom. That's before Kelly Jo painted it and moved into it. So we found them closed up in that bedroom. And then we found in the girls' bedroom, there was a closet that had a well in there.
It was kind of a big L-shaped room.
Yeah, and it had a sealed well inside that closet. And that's where the night that I moved in, that Amanda had been down there with me, and she stood facing that and said, somebody died in here or something. And she didn't know what it was. We hadn't defined it yet. And she just sealed it off. And we ended up putting a big dresser in front of that. Door was closed. You'd never know. And she cleansed the whole room, cleansed that. And Kay, a few months later, when she was doing a pendulum reading there, after Rainey had seen the little boy in the house, Rainey and I started dating after all of that. And there was the little boy in the house, and it was Kay said she thinks it was that there was a boy that had either died in that well or in a well on the property. And we're all in the city, by the way. This is a suburb of Minneapolis. So we had a big yard, an acre lot in the city.
Far enough out in the
unheard of.
1800s and even early 1900s, they would have probably still been using well water.
Yeah. And this house was in the South Minneapolis, near the Mall of America area. So way over in that area of town. And so I can't impress the visual. So that you walk in, there's just a busy street going through square block residential neighborhoods, all houses. That's where we lived. We just happen to have a big lot. So so it was very interesting stuff that happened in that house. And Kay got on this pendulum reading that there was, how did she say it? 4 ghosts and 2 spirits in that house. Or it was the other way around. I can't remember. 2 ghosts and 4 spirits.
Isn't it while you were living there that your ex contacted you from the other side?
Oh, yeah. I've told this story before, but in that particular house, when Rainey and I, when she had seen the little boy, and we had Kay and Amanda came over, and Kay was sitting on the floor doing a pendulum reading, and Amanda and Rainey and I were sitting up on the big bed in that big bedroom, and it's daylight. It's during the daytime, and she's doing a pendulum reading, and she picked up that there was a young woman, was one of the ghosts, who had died 13, 14 years earlier, something like that. And she was there. And she asked for her name, and the pendulum board spelled out Tamara. And it started spelling the last name Barnhart. Now, this is a story I've told before, if you've heard it before, folks. But Tamara Barnhart was a girl that I dated, as much as you can in high school. She was my girlfriend when I was in high school. And she was 2 years behind me. We were only a year apart in age because I was younger for my class. And she, when I went off to college, we didn't break up. We just, hey, I'm going to college, and and I won't see you very much. And it was never okay. And I break with thee, I break with thee, I break with thee. Nothing like that. And we just kind of went our separate ways. I knew her dad was a professor at the seminary there up in the cities. And I moved out of town to the school. And her mom was from West Virginia. They were all from West Virginia, her parents. And so I had heard over the years. Now I left for school in 1978. I left for college, August of 1978. And I hadn't seen her for a long time. I saw her once. She came and visited our church. She was married to a guy and a chiropractor, I think, and she was a nurse. They didn't have any kids. That was 4 years later, 4 or 5 years later. And that's the last time I saw her. And I had heard, now she had severe diabetes when I was in school. And diabetes in 1978, it's a little different than people that have it now. We're treated so much differently. And so she was insulin dependent. She would have her either drops or highs. There was one time we're walking down the stairwell at school, crowded stairwell, and she just stopped and she passed out. And I actually had to physically pick her up and walk her. I ran as fast as I could, carrying a young woman to the nurse's office. And so she had it severe. Well, she got pregnant in the ensuing years that I hadn't seen her. And somebody told me the year was I think it had to be 1990 to 1992, somewhere in there, that she had died in childbirth. She got pregnant. And, women who don't have diabetes can contract diabetes during childbirth because of the strain on their body. And so Tammy had, the way the story was told me, she had contracted diabetes in childbirth, and it was just too much, and it took her. And I don't know if the baby survived or not. I don't know. But I was told that years later. And I remember it just strikes you in the heart, and you just go, oh, man. I'd lost touch with her and yada, yada. So that was around when I graduated high school in 78. Saw her in maybe 81, 82 when I was in seminary at our church in Minneapolis. And that's the last I saw her. And then I heard that she died right around 90, 91, 92, right in there. So that's when I heard about that. Now, when Kay got the name Tamara Barnhart, Kay didn't know anything about girls I dated in high school that I hadn't talked about in many years.
Yeah.
And I hadn't talked about Tammy from the last I had heard from a good friend that knew them that said she had passed away. And so now it's 2000, it's January of 2006 is when I'm told by Kay, she connects with Tamara Barnhart. And I asked a few questions. Some of them it answered on the board, and some it didn't. Hey, Lewis, I see you out there. I have no idea who you are, brother. Wave at me if you can hear my voice. I see you in the wings. There, he took off. So some people just like to call, and I think I'm just going to bring them in cold. So anyway, to make this very long story short, I'm trying to give a picture of what I was experiencing at the time. Rainey and I were sitting on the bed next to each other. Amanda was over here, and Kay was on the floor, and she got this Tamara Barnhart. And I remember Rainey was wearing blue jeans and a black button-up sweater, and she had a big hole in the knee of her jeans because I remember her skin, and because she felt ice cold against her skin right there. But we both looked at each other at the same moment because we saw as she was talking about Tammy Barnhart, we saw this mist pass between us. Just, and I looked, and Rainey looked back at me at the same time, and she goes, "Did you just see that?" Yeah, I did. And so Kay was saying that she thought the jealous woman was this Tammy Barnhart. She was gleaning, and then Amanda pitched in too, psychically, and they were saying that she's the jealous woman presence. That she died and in death still loved you. Kay said, this young woman, and this is before I even gave the story, this young woman was in love with you once, she said, and she's still in love with you in death and grieves over having lost you. And she's attached herself. She's been with you for a very long time. And she said 12, 13, 14 years, something like that was what Kay said. So then that was then led to the other story I've told before, which is more familiar. The next day, Rainey and I were staying together an awful lot, but she had her own house in St. Paul. So she went home the night before, or the morning. And so I'm all alone in the house, early afternoon, January, bright sunshine at 20 below zero. You know, those kind of days, the snow heaped up, everything's bright outside, bright light coming in. And so I'm standing in the bedroom, and I'm in the doorway, and the big bed is over in I had a California King, and it was way over in the corner at a diagonal, and there's all this wood floor between me and it. And I'm standing in the doorway, and I said, I said, Tammy, if you're here, I said, you're welcome to stay, but I wouldn't mind knowing if you were here, but can you give me some sign if you're here? And as soon as I said that, the words weren't even out of my mouth. I heard on the floor halfway between me and the bed. It sounded like somebody dropped a 5-pound hammer on the floor in between us, or pounded on the floor. And I went, oh, because it wasn't even out of my mouth yet. This, if you want to give me a sign, foam. And I went, well, I said, that'll do. I said, all I ask is that you don't hover over my bed at night, because I will most definitely pee my sheets. And I said, I said, if you want to be here, that's fine. Don't scare my kids. Don't scare me in the middle of the night, and so on. Then I went looking through the house. What was right below my bedroom was my daughter's bedroom, that well room. And it was all refinished, of course, and it's all. So I went down there, and I thought, what could have made that sound? I'm looking at the ceiling, thinking, is there a duct there or pipes? Nothing, just bare ceiling and a ceiling fan in the middle of the ceiling. So that began a series of all kinds of little things that would happen in that house. So that was either Tammy in the afterlife, or it was something masquerading by that name.
Which spirits can do.
Which spirits do. So it was very interesting. And a lot of things happened in that house. So that was the house where Mandy was over, and I made her dinner, and her mom was there, Kay, and I made them both dinner, obviously. And I was looking for a rubber band. There's that story. And I had slip-on shoes, heelless. There was no heel on the back of the shoe. What do you call them? Not clogs, but whatever they call them now.
Well,
and
like
leather
clogs.
Shoes. And maybe they are clogs. But
like my Crocs.
Yeah, they're like Crocs.
Yeah.
They were nice, really thick, heavy leather ones. They were really nice. And so I'm looking for a rubber band. Can't find one. Well, eventually, through the night, then Mandy and her mom went home. I'm alone in the house. The kids are at Annette's for the weekend. And so I kick off my shoes by my desk, and where I always did, in the breezeway. And I went to bed. Got up the next morning, beautiful, bright, shiny day. And I walked back to my office, and I slip on my shoes. And I'm like, what the hell? And I kicked off my shoes, and the toes of both my shoes are crammed full of rubber bands. Just crammed into the end of my shoes, which weren't there when I went to bed a few hours earlier. And nobody was in the house.
I didn't do it.
Unless that was you.
Nope, I didn't do it.
I did that in the house where you had the shelf on the kitchen sink, the other house. So I thought that was strange. And I just talked to the house and I said, very funny. It's like, do ghosts play practical jokes? And watch, we'll get them with the rubber bands.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very funny. So anyway, so there you go. All right, folks, it's 11 o'clock. I got a couple of kids here and a friend staying over with Flynn, and so I'm going to bug out for the night. Thanks for joining the captain's cabin after joining the show tonight. I appreciate it. And Uncle Dave, thanks for joining
Give the kids a
me.
hug for me.
I will do.
All right.
And everybody, I'm going to let you go, Uncle Dave. See you later. And, oh, by the way, Uncle Dave, if you're still hearing, you should come over this weekend sometime. We're all going to go to a movie. We're going to go see Jurassic Park at noon tomorrow in Hudson. So anyway, you're in Rochester. So, folks, I just want to say I appreciate everybody, every last one of you. I appreciate the fact that you come in and give me your time. And so, and thank you, whoever just said I just switched the channel out. Happy Father's Day. Thank you, Barbie D. And so all of you, you have a good night. And I want you to live long and prosper.